If you want to fly, give up everything that weighs you down. Happy morning, dear students. In previous class, we started the fourth chapter and completed the morphology and anatomy of earthworm and cockroach. Today, we will discuss about the morphology and the anatomy of frog. Amphibians were the first vertebrate to live on land. There are about 4,500 species of amphibians. Frog is an amphibian, hence placed in the class Amphibia. What is meant by amphibia? Amphi means both, bios means life. So these amphibians, that means the frog, live both in land and water. So frogs live in freshwater ponds, streams, and in moist places. They feed on small animals like insects, worms, small fishes, etc. During its early development, a frog is fully aquatic and breathes like a fish with gills. This frog can change their body temperature. The body temperature varies with the varying environmental temperature. So it is called as poikilothermic or cold-blooded animals. If you see the classification, it belongs to the phylum Chordata, class Amphibia, order Aenura, genus Rana, and species Hexadactyla. So frog அப்படினாலே Rana, hexana 6, dactyl means on the fingers, okay, Hexadactyla. If you see the morphology of frog, the body of frog is streamlined to help in swimming. It is dorsoventrally flattened and is divisible into head and trunk. The body is covered by smooth, slimy skin loosely attached to the body wall. The skin is dark green on the dorsal side and pale on the ventral side. The head is almost triangular in shape and has an apex which forms a snout. Snout na the blunt shape that is called a snout. The mouth is at the anterior end and can open widely. External nostrils are present on the dorsal surface of the snout, one on each side of the median line. Eyes are large and project above the general body surface of the body. They lie behind the external nostrils and are protected by a thin, movable lower eyelid, thick, immovable upper eyelid, and a third transparent eyelid called nictitating membrane. So the eyes are covered by three eyelids, the thin, movable lower eyelid, and thick, immovable upper eyelid, and the third eyelid is called as a nictitating membrane. This membrane protects the eye when the frog is under water. A pair of tympanic membranes forms the ear drum behind the eyes on the either side. Frogs have no external ears, neck and tail are absent. So frogs ku ear, neck, tail edhum illa. The trunk bears a pair of forelimbs and a pair of hind limbs. At the posterior end of the dorsal side, between the hind limbs, is the cloacal aperture. This is the common opening for digestive, excretory, and reproductive systems. If you see the forelimbs, these forelimbs are short, stumpy, and helps to bear the weight of the body. It is also helpful for landing of the thigh, shank, and foot. The foot bears 5 long webbed toes and one small spot called the sixth toe. So it is having 6 toes. So they are called as hexadactyla. These are the adaptations for leaping and swimming. When the animal is at rest, the hind limbs are kept folded in the form of a letter Z. Sexual dimorphism is exhibited clearly during the breeding season. If you see the male frog, the difference between the male and the female frog, the male frog has the pair of vocal sacs and a copulatory or nuptial pad on the ventral side of the first digit of each forelimb. This vocal sac is responsible for making that croaking sound of the frog. It helps to amplify the sound. Vocal sacs and nuptial pads are absent in female frogs. So this is the main difference between male and the female frog. If you see the anatomy of frog, it includes various systems like digestive system, respiratory system, excretory system, nervous system, circulatory and reproductive system. First we see how this digestive system works. The alimentary canal consists of the buccal cavity, pharynx, esophagus, duodenum, ileum and rectum, which leads to the cloaca and opens outside by the cloacal aperture. The wide mouth opens into the buccal cavity. On the floor of the buccal cavity lies a large muscular sticky tongue. The tongue is attached in front and free behind. Frontல attach ஆயிருக்கும், பின்னாடி free இருக்கும். The free edge is forked, that is bifid. When the frog sights an insect, it flicks out its tongue and the insect gets glued into the sticky tongue. The tongue is immediately withdrawn and the mouth closes. A row of small pointed maxillary teeth is found on the inner region of the upper jaw. In addition, worm-rind teeth is also present as two groups, one on each side of the internal nostrils. So teeth are present in this mouth of this frog. Maxillary teeth, worm-rind teeth are present. The lower jaw is devoid of teeth. Lower jaw la teeth illa. The mouth opens into the buccal cavity that leads to the esophagus through the pharynx. The esophagus is a short tube that opens into the stomach. Then esophagus opens into stomach and continues as the intestine, rectum and finally opens outside by the cloaca. Here the digestive glands are liver and pancreas. Liver secretes bile which is stored in the gallbladder. Pancreas is the digestive gland which produces pancreatic juice containing digestive enzymes. The food is captured by the bilobe tongue and the digestion of food takes place by the action of hydrochloric acid and gastric juices secreted from the walls of the stomach. This partially digested food called chyme is passed from the stomach to the first part of the intestine, that is the duodenum. The duodenum receives bile from the gallbladder and pancreatic juice from the pancreas through a common bile duct. This bile emulsifies or breaks down fat and the pancreatic juices digest carbohydrate, proteins and lipids. Final digestion takes place in the intestine. This digested food is absorbed by the numerous finger-like folds in the inner walls of the intestine called villi and microvilli. The undigested solid waste moves into the rectum and passes out through the cloaca. In this you have to know the difference between the anus and the cloaca. So in the digestive system of human, the alimentary canal starts from mouth and ends in anus, whereas in frog it starts from mouth and ends in cloacal aperture. So what is the difference between anus and cloaca? Anus means the opening at the lower end of the alimentary canal in mammals through which the solid waste leaves the body, whereas cloaca is the common chamber into which the intestinal, urinary and the genital tract open. So digestive, excretion and the reproduction எல்லாத்துக்குமே ஒரே opening தான். It is present in birds, reptiles, amphibians, fishes and monotremes. The cloaca has an opening for expelling its content from the body, and in females it serves as a depository for sperms. So sperm deposit பண்றதுக்கு femaleக்கு useful இருக்கு. That means in reproductive system. Next we move on to the respiratory system. Frog respires on land and in the water by two different methods. So in water, skin act as a aquatic respiratory organ. That means cutaneous respiration takes place in water. Dissolved oxygen in water gets exchanged through the skin by diffusion. On land, the buccal cavity, skin and lungs act as a respiratory organ. So, in buccal respiration on land, the mouth remains permanently closed while the nostrils remains open. The floor of the buccal cavity is alternatively raised and lowered. So, air is drawn into and expelled out of the buccal cavity repeatedly through the open nostrils. Respiration by lungs is called as pulmonary respiration. The lungs are a pair of elongated pink-colored sac-like structure present in the upper part of the trunk region, that is in the thorax. So lungs are the paired elongated structure which is present in the upper part of the trunk. Air enters through the nostrils into the buccal cavity and then to the lungs. During aestivation and hibernation, gaseous exchange takes place through skin. So during this winter sleep and summer sleep, that is aestivation and hibernation, gaseous exchanges takes place through skin. Next is the circulatory system or the blood vascular system. Blood vascular system consists of heart with 3 chambers, blood vessels and blood. The heart is covered by a double-walled membrane called pericardium. There are 2 thin-walled anterior chambers called auricles and a single thick-walled posterior chamber called ventricle. So it is 3-chambered. So anterior chambers are called auricles and the posterior chamber is a ventricle. Sinus venosus is a large thin-walled triangular chamber which is present on the dorsal side of the heart. Sinus venosus is present on the dorsal side of the heart. Truncus arteriosus is a thick-walled and cylindrical structure which is obliquely placed on the ventral surface of the heart. So it rises from the ventricle and divides into right and the left aortic trunk. Ventricle irundhu truncus arteriosus ஒரு trunk போகும், அது ரெண்டா பிரியுது, ஓகேவா, right and the left aortic trunk. So which is further divided into 3 aortic arches, namely carotid, systemic and pulmonocutaneous. Carotid trunk supplies blood to the anterior region of the body. The systemic trunk of each side is joined posteriorly to form dorsal aorta. They supply blood to the posterior part of the body. Systemic trunk supply blood to the posterior part of the body, whereas the carotid trunk supplies blood to the anterior part of the body. Next is the pulmocutaneous trunk, which supplies blood to the lungs and skin. Pulmo abdinale lungs, cutaneous na skin. Sinus venosus receives the deoxygenated blood from the body parts by the 2 anterior precaval vein and 1 postcaval vein. It delivers the blood to the right auricle. At the same time, left auricle receives the oxygenated blood through the pulmonary vein. Renal portal and the hepatic portal systems are also seen in frog. Renal portal system is nothing but the veins which are connected to the kidney and the lower parts of the body. And the hepatic portal systems are the veins that are connected to liver and the intestine. The blood consists of plasma and blood cells. Plasma 60% and blood cells 40%. The blood cells contains red blood cells, white blood cells and platelets. RBCs are loaded with a red pigment and it is nucleated and oval in shape. Leukocytes are nucleated and circular in shape. So what is the difference between RBC and WBC in frog? RBCs are loaded with a red pigment, that is hemoglobin, and they are nucleated and oval in shape, whereas WBCs are nucleated and circular in shape. Next we move on to the nervous system. The nervous system is divided into the central nervous system, peripheral nervous system and autonomous nervous system. Central nervous system includes brain and spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system includes the cranial nerves and spinal nerves. Autonomous nervous system is divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. They control the involuntary functions of visceral organs. Visceral means important. This central nervous system consists of brain and spinal cord, and this brain is situated in the cranial cavity or the skull and is covered by two meninges. Meninges means the covering of the brain is called as meninges, which is called as pyometer and durameter. 10th standard itself you might have know about this. So the brain is divided into forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. Forebrain is the anterior most and the largest part, which consists of olfactory lobes and cerebral hemispheres and a diencephalon. Anterior part of the olfactory lobes is narrow and free but is fused posteriorly. So the olfactory lobes contain a small cavity called the olfactory ventricle. The midbrain includes two large oval optic lobes, optic eyes, and have cavities called optic ventricles. The hindbrain consists of cerebellum and medulla oblongata. Cerebellum is a narrow, thin, transverse band followed by medulla oblongata. The medulla oblongata passes through the foramen magnum and continues as spinal cord. What is foramen magnum? Foramen magnum is an opening found at the base of the skull. This spinal cord is enclosed in the vertebral column. Next is the excretory system. Elimination of nitrogenous waste and salt, water balance are performed by well-developed excretory system. It consists of a pair of kidney, ureters, urinary bladder and cloaca. These kidney are dark red, long, flat organs situated on either side of the vertebral column in the body cavity. The kidneys are mesonephric type. Several nephrons are found in each kidney. They separate nitrogenous waste from the blood and excrete urea. A pair of ureter emerges from the kidneys and open into the cloaca. A thin-walled, unpaired urinary bladder, unpaired means single urinary bladder, is present ventral to the rectum and opens into the cloaca. Since this excretory product of frog is urea, so it is called as ureotelic organisms. Next is the reproductive system. The male frog has a pair of testes which are attached to the kidney and the dorsal body wall by folds of peritoneum called mesorchium. Vas efferentia arises from each testis. They enter into the kidney on both sides and open into the bladder canal. Finally, it communicates with the urinogenital duct that comes out of kidney and opens into cloaca. It's very simple. You can see in this diagram. The male frog has a pair of testes. From testis arises a vas deferens. This vas deferens enters into the kidney and finally it opens into the urinogenital duct and opens out into cloaca. The female reproductive system consists of paired ovaries attached to the kidneys and the dorsal body wall by the folds of peritoneum called mesoovarium. In a male it is mesorchium and in female it is mesoovarium. There is a pair of coiled oviduct. Oviduct means ovum carry பண்ணக்கூடிய duct tube lying on either side of the kidney. Each oviduct opens into the body cavity at the anterior end by a funnel-like opening called ostia. So, each oviduct has a funnel-like structure called ostia. Unlike the male frog, the female frog has separate genital duct distinct from ureters. Posteriorly, the oviduct dilated into the ovisac before they open into cloaca. Oviduct எல்லாம் சேர்ந்து ovisacல open ஆகி and then it opens into cloaca. What is ovisac? Ovisac is a sac-like structure which helps to store the eggs temporarily before they are sent out through the cloaca. Here the fertilization is external. Within the few days of fertilization, the eggs hatch into tadpoles. A newly hatched tadpole lives off the yolk stored in its body. It gradually grows larger and develops into three pairs of gills. The tadpole grows and metamorphoses into an air-breathing carnivorous adult frog. Legs grow from the body, and the tail and gills disappear. The mouth broadens, developing the teeth and jaws, and the lungs becomes functional. Here metamorphosis takes place where the eggs develops into tadpole and then tadpoles grows into an adult frog. Very important question is the economic importance of frog. So what are the economic importance of frog? Frog is an important animal in the food chain. It helps to maintain ecosystem. So frogs should be protected. So without frog, the food chain will be disturbed. Frogs are beneficial to man since they feed on insects and helps in reducing insect pest population. It helps the farmers. Okay, it feeds the insects, which helps in reducing the insect pest population. Third one is the frogs are used in traditional medicine for controlling blood pressure and for anti-aging properties. It is also used as medicine for controlling blood pressure. And in USA, Japan, China and northeast of India, frogs are consumed as delicious foods as they have high nutritive value. Frogs have high nutritive value, so they are used as food. Frogs are சாப்பிடுறாங்க. Okay, so these are the economic importance of a frog. Is a very important question.